Hello, I want to ask you a question. Do you believe that Jesus literally prophesied who the Antichrist would be in the Gospels of Matthew chapter 23 and 24? Could it be that he actually gave us the name of the office of the Antichrist back in Matthew 23 and 24? I believe he did. Back before I went to Israel in May of 2014, it's been almost a year now since I went. I thank the Lord for it. It was a dream come true for me. I had, up until that point, up until May 2014, I had been looking in the wrong direction for the Antichrist and the identity of the Antichrist. Back in May of 2014, the Lord showed me Vatican flags in Israel. As I was looking at photos on my phone and looking at photos on the internet of Israel and different places that I would be going to visit in person. And the Holy Spirit drew my attention to Vatican flags and flying all over Israel and Nazareth and the old city of Jerusalem, pictures and posters of the Pope of Rome all over the city, all over the old city and all over the streets outside the city. And never before had I thought about the Pope of Rome being the Antichrist until May of 2014. So this has been something recent that the Lord has brought to my attention. But back in May of 2014, not only did the Lord draw me to these Vatican flags all over Nazareth and Israel and the Pope's posters and pictures being everywhere, but the Lord also drew me to Matthew 23, chapter 23, verse 9, where he says, "Call no man on earth your father, for you have one Father who is in heaven." That spoke to me back then because the Pope takes the name Holy Father. There is no other religious leader today, whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Jehovah's Witness, Mormon, there's no other religious leader today, a religious figure today that goes by the title Holy Father or calls himself Father or expects other people to call him Father. The Lord also took me to Matthew 24, chapter 5, where he says, "Many will come in my name, saying, I am Christ," will come in my name, saying, "I am he." Now remember, when Jesus came into this world, Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6 says that he is the mighty God, the everlasting Father. When Jesus said, "I come in my Father's name," that was literally fulfilling Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, where Jesus was prophesied to be the mighty God, the singular everlasting Father. To come in someone's name, as Jesus did when he said, "I come in my Father's name," is to literally tell people, I am the Father. I'm the Father in the flesh. When you see me, you've seen the one who sent me. For the Pope of Rome to come claiming that he is the singular Holy Father is literally to take the name and title of Christ that was prophesied in Isaiah 9:6. The Lord began to take me through Matthew 24, verse 5 and Matthew 23, verse 9, showing me that the popes of Rome throughout history have claimed the title, the Vicar of Christ. They've come in the name of Christ, and they call themselves the Holy Father, which is singular. They literally claim to be God on earth by taking that title alone, let alone the other blasphemous titles that the papacy carries with itself throughout the hundreds of years that the papacy has existed. There are many names of blasphemy with the papacy, but the very fact that the popes of Rome have always taken the name, the Holy Father, right there to me is blasphemy. To me, that Jesus was directly saying back in Matthew 24, verse 5 and Matthew 23, verse 9, he was proclaiming the very title that the Antichrist would take when he said, "Many will come in my name claiming I am Christ." What other worldly, earthly figure in any religious setting today, or even in a secular setting, a president of a nation, a king of a nation, or any other religion, false religion of this world, has ever claimed to be the singular Holy Father, except the papacy of Rome? None that I can think of. I believe Jesus was prophesying in Matthew 24:5 and Matthew 23:9 the very name and title of the Antichrist. He was saying it without coming out and saying it. But when he revealed that to me, for those of us who have eyes to see and ears to hear today, that it is indeed the popes of Rome and the Pope himself that will be the final Antichrist that will come on the scene. I think he's on the scene now, but will very clearly reveal himself to the world as the Antichrist. But Jesus was revealing in Matthew 24 and Matthew 23, I believe, the name and office of the Antichrist himself, the one who would come, or the many who would come claiming, I am the Father. And then the final one that would come saying, I am the Holy Father, the one you've been waiting for. So I figured I would just share my thoughts with you on that. I believe Jesus revealed the name and title and office of Antichrist in Matthew 23:9 and Matthew 24:5. But do your own research on that and see how God leads you. Like I said, back in May of 2014 is when he really brought this revelation full force to my understanding, and delivered me from believing that the Antichrist or the man of sin would come from a Muslim nation. He's firmly taken me away from that, and he's put many things in my path. I'm just sharing one of many things that he has shown me personally and privately in my own study time with him. As a matter of fact, I'll share this with you briefly. When I was in Israel, after receiving this revelation from the Lord, my heart was stricken with pain and an overwhelming burden for the people of Israel. As I walked through the streets of Jerusalem, as I rode the tour bus around different streets through Galilee and Nazareth and even in the Palestinian territories, which I did go into a couple of times, the Pope's poster was everywhere. His face and picture were all over Israel. The Vatican flags were everywhere. There were posters up saying, welcoming His Holiness, the Holy Father. His picture was all over the Church of the Nativity. As a matter of fact, right before we walked into the Church of the Nativity, there were posters up outside the church with a picture of the Pope declaring that he would make peace between Israel and Palestine, that they may be one. And there were signs all over Bethlehem and in the Palestinian territories claiming to be their own state and thanking the Pope for this. I mean, it was everywhere. It was everywhere. Visiting David's tomb, which I did get a chance to visit and see, I believe the Lord sent this beautiful Israeli woman to me. She was standing next to me in line to go into David's tomb. And she started, for some reason, she didn't know me, okay, but the Lord knew that maybe I had something to say to her that day. So he arranged this conversation. She complained to me of her pain and asked me, why is the Pope taking David's tomb from us? Why is the Vatican coming in here and doing this? Now, she was probably looking at me, assuming that I was Catholic, because she could obviously tell that I wasn't from Israel, maybe assuming I was Catholic. And she began to pour her heart out to me about her pain and Israel's pain collectively about this. I had the opportunity to comfort her and tell her that I'm against what the Vatican is doing. I'm against what the Pope of Rome is doing to Israel. And I was able to hug her and hold her in my arms and tell her, I understand your pain. I'm against this. I'm not Roman Catholic. I do not align myself with what he is doing here in Jerusalem and what he is doing with the upper room in David's tomb. And my heart just went out to her the entire time. And she asked me to come home and spread her message and ask for prayer. But it's overwhelming how much in pain I witnessed just in the everyday citizens that I was over there, that seeing the Pope's fingerprints all over Israel and all over Jerusalem and all over the lands that God gave them. I got to see this firsthand. I got to comfort and speak to some people firsthand. It was amazing. But the Antichrist, the Pope, his picture was all over Israel when I was there, and people couldn't wait for him to show up. I mean, there was just as many people hailing his coming as they were grieving over his coming. It was amazing. But after receiving this revelation from the Lord about the Pope of Rome, from Matthew 23:9 and Matthew 24:5, that many would come in his name claiming, I am Christ, the Lord revealing to me that, the Pope of Rome is the man of sin, and that the succession of the popes have been the many that would come in his name claiming that they are Christ. I was overwhelmed being in Israel and seeing this. As a matter of fact, the day that I left Israel, the Pope flew in the following day. So, and everything was set up for his arrival, and it was very surreal for me, having had this newly revealed to me by the Holy Spirit, that the papacy were the many that Jesus said would come in his name claiming to be Christ, and that there would be a final Antichrist claiming to be the one that they've been waiting for, the Holy Father, coming in the name of God himself. And to have this newly revealed to me right before I went to Israel, and then seeing his fingerprints all over, it was overwhelming. It really was. But the people of Israel need your prayers. that more people would, that God would open up their eyes to who this man really is. But I believe Jesus did reveal to us, getting back to the original topic, that the man of sin, the many that would come in his name claiming I am Christ, is the papacy of Rome, and the one coming saying I am the Holy Father, singular, is Satan's way of trying to fulfill what Isaiah 9:6 says about Yeshua, the mighty God, the everlasting Father. Think about it. The Pope having that very title that Jesus prophesied in Matthew 23 and Matthew 24, I believe was Jesus telling us, even back then in the Gospels, who the Antichrist and the man of sin would be. The very name that he would claim to take was prophesied by Jesus right there, just in those 2 verses. But I thought I would share my heart with you on that, and then leave that up to your judgment to pray about. Thank you for listening to the video, and thank you for all your encouragement. I receive your messages and on YouTube, and I appreciate the encouragement. And you get out there too. You get out there as well, and you start using Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube. Start using what God's given you while there's time left to get the word out. You never know what you have to say. It could affect a heart in a way that you know nothing about. God bless you today, and thanks for watching.